Hey, everyone, and welcome to the Mark Prater podcast, where our aim is to connect our global family of Sovereign Grace churches with our executive director. Mark, you were sharing with me right before we started recording some exciting news. We just added another emerging nation partner church in the Philippines. There's a lot going on in the Philippines, praise
There
God.
is.
Uh,
Yep.
and so you want to tell us about that, but that's actually not the only one. So talk to us about what's going on.
Yeah. Yesterday, the executive committee approved an emerging nation partnership agreement for Cross of Christ Salvation Gospel Ministries. That's the name of the church in Dasmariñas City, which is in the province of Cavite, which is just outside of Manila, really kind of a bigger extension of Manila. And by the way, that church name, Cross of Christ Salvation Gospel Ministries, Jeff Joe has helped plant or planted a number of churches that have that name. I've told Jeff that that is the longest church name in Sovereign Grace, and I would venture to guess even in church history. So
It's
we
getting a lot of work done too.
yeah,
It's
that's
pretty
right.
clear what's going on there.
He's pretty clear. You can tell by the name. So that church is led by Ray Lakbayo, and I've met Ray. He is a mature, godly pastor and a very good leader, not only of his church, but he also helps provide leadership in the Philippines alongside of Jeff. So I thank God for Ray. I'm so excited personally that this church is a full partner church in Sovereign Grace. So
Yes.
we've added three partner churches since January. Two in
Mm,
Costa Rica, here in the Philippines. That takes us to 102 partner churches, 70 in the States and 32 outside of the
wow.
States. And then we've got three more that will likely happen by the fall, maybe the end of the year, from Colombia, because we just did ordinations down there of pastors in three different churches, which I've mentioned in a previous episode. So it's just exciting to see these partner churches added. And what's especially encouraging and faith building for me is the quality of men that are leading those churches. These are
Mm,
godly men. I've met the guys in Colombia as well. They are godly men, gospel centered men who really are very compatible with our theological convictions and gospel centrality. So that's just very, very exciting. Not only there's partner churches, a church plants that we have planned. I mentioned in a previous episode when I talked about my time in Guadalajara, Mexico is looking at three church plants.
right.
One in Guadalupe, one in West Juarez. Both those are in poor communities. And the men
Mm,
that will, I did lunch with those two guys that will plant those churches, and they are already living in that community and
mm.
just want to stay there. It's very humbling and compelling. So those will likely happen. I know Carlos is also talking about in planting in Chihuahua as well. So it could be in the next year to 2 years, three more churches planted in Mexico, and then Jeffrey Joe, he's kind of a church planting machine. I know he's
Yeah.
got another one planned there for the Philippines. So just a few quick updates for how God is at work in and through our small family of churches, and giving us opportunities to reach the nations with the gospel of Jesus Christ.
Excellent. That's such an encouraging update. One of the things that's essential in all of this is gifted leaders. And so we have, as you mentioned already in the update, there are a number of men that God has brought our way that are gifted and godly leaders. And so you guys, like we do in this, have for years and years in the States, are also having retreats for uh, global leaders, and you're having a global leaders retreat in a couple of weeks. Talk to us about that.
Yeah, I wanted to mention it now because it ties to, our global expansion as a family of churches. The leadership team and I are five members of the leadership team, and I. So it'll be myself, John Payne, Jeff Purswell, and Jared Mellinger, along with Dave Taylor.
Hmm.
Will be in Sydney for a global leaders retreat. That'll happen June 10th through the 12th. So it's only a couple weeks away, and I wanted to mention it now because it really does. It's an expression of our strategic plan to build in a way that we invest into national leaders. But
Yeah.
also mention it now because I would ask you to pray for this retreat.
Hmm.
This will be an important retreat. Let me tell you who's going to be there. Ed O'Mara, who is our area leader in Europe and just doing a wonderful job. Ed is church planting in Torino, Italy. And then for representing Latin America, both Carlos Contreras and Jose Lo Mercado will be there. Representing Latin America from Asia, Jeffrey Joe from Manila, Philippines, who's our leader in the Philippines, and Andrew Leung, who's an elder in
Mm-hmm.
Sydney, but helping with some work there in the Philippines. And then Riley Spring, who's the
Mm-hmm.
senior pastor of Sovereign Grace Church in Parramatta, and really is our leader there in Australia. And then we had hoped that Amani could come from Addis Ababa, Ethiopia, to this, but he just couldn't get a visa. So there were immigration issues. So Bart Lipscomb, who is our area
Mm-hmm.
leader in Africa, he will be there. And then along with members of the leadership team. So as I read those names, these are men that are leading in each of their different nations or parts of the world. And what we want to do is to pull them together to invest into them. So the retreat has several purposes. One, we want to build relationally together with them and help them to build relationally with one another. Also, we want to develop them and invest into them because these men are the face of sovereign grace in their nation, and how sovereign grace goes in that nation depends upon them. So we just want to invest into them through teaching, through prayer, through fellowship, through encouragement. And then we've got one of the things that Dave has planned so well is to just each of the guys give updates. And so they can learn about what's going on in different parts of the world. And what's happened in that discussion before is they begin to ask questions of one another and learn from one another. So
Mm-hmm.
Jeffrey Joe might be doing something in the Philippines that interests Carlos, and Carlos might be doing something that interests Ed O'Mara. And it's just wonderful to watch. So what we have planned is the very first day is just that we're asking up for updates from each nation, and Dave sent out specific categories where they're going to give updates. That'll be for the whole day. That'll be wonderful, and that kind of dialogue that I just mentioned will most certainly occur. And then we're just going to take some time to invest into them. We've got Jeff teaching on 2 Corinthians and the power for pastoral ministry.
Mm-hmm.
I'm going to talk about important lessons for extra local leadership because these men are extra local leaders. And there's certain ways you've got to think as an extra local leader that we just want to spend talking about. Then we've got Jared doing a session on keeping a watch over your pastor's doctrine, helping pastors stay focused on remaining theologically grounded and their theological development for themselves. Obviously, John Payne's going to do one, keeping a watch on your pastor's life. It's that pastoral epistle text.
Yeah.
Watch your life and doctrine closely. So we'll be addressing that. Dave's just going to talk through a little bit. Dave Taylor's going to talk through just what tools they have available to them to build their nation, and we want to make sure they're clear on that. And I'm just going to wrap it up with a shorter sort of message on casting vision for our future and cultivating faith for the road ahead. So that's what we've got planned. I'm really, really excited about it. Those men that'll be there, I thank God for, because they're working very hard and on their continent or nation. And we couldn't do what we do. We couldn't build relationally. We couldn't care for churches. We couldn't consider adoptions or church plants without these men and their leadership. So please pray for them and pray for the members of the leadership team that will be there.
Yes, please do pray. Sounds like an excellent time that has been planned. I'm sure will serve all those who are gathering. Now, before we end the podcast, we've been talking about leadership a good bit here. And somehow or another, you want to connect this to the world of football, or for a Yankee like me, soccer, which I'm sure at this moment is of great interest globally, to our audience globally, and to a small but righteous remnant here in the States. So
Yeah.
have at it.
Yeah, so I want to talk about Premier League soccer, and that's real football, real soccer. That is the professional English league. It's the highest league.
Mm.
And I want to talk about Tottenham Hotspurs, which I have been a fan of for several years and have learned that there are other men in Sovereign Grace who actually are Tottenham followers. Ed O'Mara is a big Tottenham fan. I know Matt Gruen, who's in Sioux Falls, South Dakota.
Oh,
He's a
yes.
Tottenham fan. Steve Whitaker's son, Jude Whitaker, is a Tottenham fan. And there's others I'm not remembering. So there's actually Tottenham fans in Sovereign Grace who are right now very excited that I'm doing this. And I'm doing this at the urging of my friend Mickey Connolly. He just said, Mark, you should talk about this on your podcast. So here's why. Tottenham had one of their worst seasons ever. So why talk about it now, right? Here's why. They were about to be relegated. What that means for those that don't follow soccer, if you get relegated, you get bumped down to the league below.
Mm.
And that not only is embarrassing for Tottenham, if they would have been relegated, it would have been a financial loss of anywhere between 250 and $300 million. So it's that kind of money that league generates. And they've got a new stadium they built just about 2 years ago. They got to pay for, so that would have been interesting. But it came down to the last Sunday, which was last Sunday, the last day of where all the teams play together. They needed to win basically to stay in, and they hadn't been relegated since 1975. So they've had success as a club typically, but not this year. And they beat Everton 1-0, and their season is saved in that regard. And it was just a sigh of relief for Tottenham fans like myself, because I really didn't know whether they were going to make it or not. The manager that gave them that win was the fourth manager this year. So that's some of the turmoil they've had. They've had a number of injuries as well. Why am I connecting all of this to leadership?
Please enlighten us.
Because here's the tie. There's a failure of leadership. From
Mm.
what I'm reading, it really is the leadership of the club, the ownership and the board of the club that oversee it and are making decisions. It really just hasn't been a good year. There's been a change of ownership, and it just hasn't gone really, really well over the last couple of years. From what I've read, they just haven't been investing into the club, even into their training facilities. There's the culture has changed there. It's not what it used to be. And so all of that has produced a losing season. And it's a reminder to us as pastors who lead in our churches, leadership is very, very important.
Mm-hmm.
Because the success of our churches, humanly speaking, does rest upon us. We need God's power and wisdom and help. So we've got God's activity, but we still have to lead and take initiative. So there's the tie, and why we're investing into these leaders in Sydney is because how that nation goes will really hinge upon the leaders. So we want to continue to invest so that our gospel culture doesn't change.
That's
and
right.
that we continue to be purposeful in reaching out with the good news of Jesus Christ throughout the world.
Wonderful. Well, thank you for the reminder and the encouragement, Mark. Hopefully, after your career in commenting on sports apparently has been launched, hopefully you and I don't get relegated after this podcast. That's what that's what I'm praying for. But thanks for the updates and the encouragement, and thank you all for checking out the podcast. We'll see you here next week, Lord willing. Bye for now.
Thank you for watching. If you have questions or comments, Mark would love to hear from you. For more videos like this, hit subscribe on YouTube or by email at markkprater.com.